and welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposal. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW round review. We are getting into the heavy part of the season. Round three has come, it has gone. Let's talk about it. Joining me, this is always one of my favorite times, ladies and gentlemen, an American and an Irishman, as Mike Curran joins me to talk about the AFL footy in Australia. Yes, an international flavor to the review this round. Mike, as always, great to see you, sir.
Thanks so much, Donny. Great to be back on for a chat. Yeah, looking forward to it.
As per usual, it is always fantastic to chat with you, sir. Let's jump right to it. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, the breakdown of each, your thoughts really quickly on this interesting round three.
Yeah, well, look at it. The season is moving along at pace. Round three done already, and it's about to pick up pace even quicker now with these condensed fixtures kicking in across the next few weeks. That's going to be hard to keep up with it all. But yeah, round three was interesting. We'll touch on some of the results there, but a couple of teams going with a couple of losses in a row now, and a few maybe upset wins even, but and we've some interesting new teams at the top of the table early in the season, so it makes for a very interesting few weeks ahead for sure.
Yeah, you look at the ladder. The ladder, it's going to do snakes and ladders the rest of the season, just with all, as you said, the condensed fixture and the fact that these teams are only playing 11 games. So you're not even getting to play everybody, but this ladder is going to go up and down. Teams are going to flip and all sorts of get out. I mean, right now at the top of the ladder, you see St. Kilda. Yes, I say it again, St. Kilda at the top of the ladder with Adelaide as the only two unbeaten teams after 3 games of play. So let's jump right into it. Round one, Thursday evening footy in Australia sees the West Coast Eagles and Daisy Pierce travel over to Victoria as Whitten Oval gets its debut after not getting it last week, and the Eagles spoil the welcome party by 11, 32-21. A cracking game of footy. Good to see the Bulldogs be a little bit more competitive, but the Eagles just did enough to get the W.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's a tough start to the season for the Bulldogs, Donny. That's 3 losses in a row now. This was by far their most impressive, I suppose, performance to date. Definitely, and maybe it was that first home game at Whitten Oval that got them up with some real bite for that one, and they actually did manage to come out fighting and put their stamp on the game pretty early here. We saw the first goal of the game from Izzy Pritchard. We got some textbook clearances from Ellie Blackburn, and then a huge tackle. I'm sure lots of people will have seen it from their new teenage sensation in Elaine Grieg, who's bringing huge physicality up there. But it just wasn't enough. A great season, a great start to the season for West Coast Eagles, whether it's the Daisy effect or whatever you want to call it. But they're 2 wins now and 1 loss. They got over the line here on this one. They're going to stay in Melbourne this week. They're building momentum. It's great to see it, to get a few early wins for the Eagles. And I think overall, more of a positive performance for the Bulldogs, but obviously that's going to be soured somewhat by that late injury to Ellie Blackburn, which has now been confirmed this morning as a season-ending injury. And I suppose that's incredibly bad news for the Bulldogs and for footy fans in general, because Ellie is one of the stars of the competition. She's been carrying the Bulldogs on her shoulders, nearly on her own, across the first few weeks so far. So, a poor start for the Bulldogs. It doesn't look like things are going to get any easier for them with Ellie Blackburn out for the rest of the season, and things looking reasonably positive in the West Coast Eagles camp. And I'm delighted to see that for Daisy and the Eagles, because she's been a brilliant player, a brilliant captain, and now she's already looking like a brilliant coach.
Yeah, 100% on that one. I'm gutted for Ellie because she does everything right. She's an all-out effort person. She does everything right. She's such a great competitor. Tough to see it. Unfortunately, this is going to make the Bulldogs youngsters grow up really quickly, but I have to go on exactly with you. I think Elaine Grigg is showing the competition exactly why she was a highly sought after commodity in this year's draft. I watched her at Central Districts for the last season in the Sandful W, and she did this on a daily basis. She's absolutely a kamikaze. If you have the footy, she is aimed towards you with utter intentions. It's so much fun to watch. I again, it's tough to watch this Bulldogs team because you can definitely tell they were stripped down to the studs over these last two seasons, and it's unfortunately Ellie's injury is only going to make it more glaring how much they have changed this list. This list is in full on rebuild mode, unfortunately. So, but the Eagles, I love what Daisy's doing. There's a competitiveness, there's a scrappy fight to this Eagles team that was not there the previous two seasons. I like what they're doing. Again, is this a soft kill for the Western Bull for the West Coast Eagles? Maybe because the Bulldogs are looked at as most likely the wooden spooners. It's going to be a difficult watch for Bulldog supporters, but the good thing is they're going to get a lot of game time into some young players. Unfortunately, it's going to be game time where they're going to have to take a lot of lumps. So we'll have to see how do they respond as the season goes on. As do we see the improvement of the results despite the loss of Ellie Blackburn? So jump to Friday night footy, and the Brisbane Lions again showing why they are a perennial premiership team as they smashed the Collingwood Magpies by 52, 72-20. And as per usual, how do they do it with their midfield? Belle Dawes, Sophie Conway, Orla O'Dwyer, holy shnikes, they just keep coming in waves to the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, phenomenal, from the Lions this week again. And they had that blip in round one with that loss to North Melbourne. And I think, if they're the reigning premiers, I think there's a crazy stat where the reigning premiers have never won the grand final rematch in round one. That
Mhm.
continued, but I think it was the kick up to behind that the Lions needed earlier, and they've driven on from that. Incredible again at the weekend. And Collingwood started pretty good in this game. They got the first three scores of the game, including the first goal from Alana Porter. But from then on, they led us quarter time, but from then on it was the Lions that powered forward. They got four unanswered goals in that second quarter and drove on to like a 52-point win overall. But seriously impressive throughout the ground. But that midfield engine room that you've mentioned there, Donny, that's been so good for them across the last few seasons, looks to be firing on all cylinders again now at the minute. And that's even despite their key forward Dakota Davison had a pretty quiet day compared to normal, and that was we mentioned some of the younger players in the previous game. That was mainly due to Collingwood's young Lucy Cronin, and I think she got the coach's MVP award on it for doing a stellar job on taking care of Dakota Davison and keeping her scoreless. But they've just got so much coming through from the midfield, so much options for goals throughout that forward half. Taylor Smith stood up the other night when Dakota Davison was having a quieter one. So yeah, the Lions are looking impressive. They've got over that first round grand final rematch blip. They're moving forward ominously, but I guess from looking at Collingwood as well, you got to feel for them a little bit. They're absolutely smashed by injuries, a team that's common across a lot of the team's early days, and something probably worrying heading into a condensed fixture. But at the weekend, they had to bring top up players, from VFLW, which is crazy to think that that's happening in just round three of a season. So they are definitely under pressure. Poor start from them again. I think no wins from three games. Definitely a bit of a rebuild going on at the Magpies as well. You've a new coach there in Sam Wright, but they probably wouldn't have liked to get to a poor start as that. But again, yeah, it's going to be a tough few weeks ahead from them. But yeah, loving the Lions' work at the weekend and across the last couple of weeks.
I mean, when Sophie Conway kicks three from the wing, that's always a great addition. Belle Dawes kicks goals, and like when your midfielders are kicking goals in AFLW, you become that much better because you become that much more dangerous. And I'm 100% with you. The Pies, like you feel horrible for them because it's like they're literally just having to sign people just to be able to play. And I mean, like, it just shows you that maybe the lists, and I agree with what several people in the media are starting to say now is that the women's lists need to grow. They need to
Yeah,
be bigger because it's just you can't the attrition with a quick season, and especially if you're going to play condensed fixture seasons, there needs to be five, six, seven more players on these lists. I know it's money, I get it, but you can't have to get to the point where a team 3 games into the season is already putting top up players onto the field because that's how devastated their injury list is. So it's a little disappointing, little disappointing, and a little disheartening that this is happening again to a team that they're getting ravaged with injuries, or Tarney Evans being suspended kind of absolutely guts a team, and it brings down the quality of the footy because of the fact that these lists are so small. But again, the Lions just so good. They're just so much fun to watch. They just keep coming in waves. I mean, the ocean is jealous with how many waves the Lions are running at people. I mean, it is absolutely insane. Let's jump down to Coffs Harbour International Stadium, a fun one as the Richmond Tigers go on the road and knock off the Swans by 46, 68-22. And as a Swans fan, this was hard to watch. Not because I think it was a bad game by the Swans, but it was the fact that no Ali Morfitt, no Cynthia Hamilton, no Chloe Malloy, several really solid players for the Swans out, and you could tell that the quality was not there. Mon Conti again, another great game. Ellie McKenzie being healthy has been fantastic to see her come back and show why she was a number one overall pick. Elise Sharon announces her arrival to the competition with another fantastic game. Katie Brennan kicking 3 goals in this game. The Tigers looking really, really good. I think that they caught a Swans team at the perfect time that Ali Morfitt is rested, and Poppy Kelly has an absolute field day, not having to deal with the All Australian ruck from the season before.
Yeah, 100%, Johnny. And I think, all those factors combined and just an absolutely phenomenal start from Richmond. The game was effectively on the scoreboard nearly over a quarter time, 5 goals, 1-1 behind at quarter time, including 3 goals from Katie Brennan in that stunning first quarter for her. She's absolutely on fire at the moment. But that first quarter definitely laid the platform for a 46-point win over Sydney. And, the Tigers total there, 68 points. That's their second highest ever in AFLW, and that first quarter score of 5 goals, 1, that's their second best first quarter ever as well. So if you open with a first quarter like that, you're setting yourself up for the game effectively, and there was no way back for the Swans, despite, as you said, they battled bravely throughout. But feeling the loss of obviously Chloe Malloy, that's a huge out for the season there from last week, and as you say, possibly managing players as well with the condensed fixture. But all those factors combined, I suppose, to give Tigers the edge here, and consecutive wins for them. So they've got a bit of a momentum now as well heading on.
Definitely for sure. And then I got to give a shout out. Monham was fantastic. She also, like Ellie McKenzie, showed why she was a number one overall pick. Her incredible talent. I think she's going to be a benefactor. Again, not that I like it, but she's going to be a benefactor of
Yeah.
Chloe's not being there, is because she's going to get those roles in that ways. And I think she showed that she can do it. We just need a little bit more consistency, and hopefully she can stay healthy through these condensed fixtures as we move on. So let's move down to Icon Park, where the shocker of the round, in atrociously fun conditions. I know as an Irishman, you probably were like, hey, this is a normal day in Ireland. As Carlton knock off the Cats by 24, 29-5. And we had hail in this game, and wasn't it quite the watch as the Blues knock off the Cats, giving the Cats an even more disastrous start to the season.
Definitely look at a real morale booster for Carlton with their second win, but a low scoring affair, atrocious conditions. All the Irish players out there must have felt right at home for sure. But to hold the Cats goalless, I suppose the conditions were appalling. There's no doubt about that. The lights were on in the second quarter, and there was hailstones. You had all 4 seasons in one game there. But the Blues definitely dealt with the conditions better. But to hold Cats goalless, their lowest score in AFLW history previously was 7 points, which was 1 goal, 1 now was 5 points in this game. Um, Phenomenal display from Carlton. I think, again, we're praising all the young players across the games. It was the Blues' young midfield in this scenario that were absolutely fantastic. Maddie Gearin especially. Mimi Hill, Abby McKay absolutely dominated throughout the game. So yeah, what a start for Geelong, and we might chat on this a bit more further on. Preliminary finalists last year, two losses and a draw now at the moment. Um, they're struggling a bit in terms of their ruck availability at the minute as well, and a bit of height. And we probably saw that a bit in this game, where they had to play most of the game with suppose an undersized ruck, so they were giving up some centimeters there. But then we had in the last quarter, Aisling Maloney, their star Irish forward, was out rucking for the last quarter, and she's probably one of their key inside forwards or their key marking forwards. So when you have to bring her out the ground to ruck, you're losing a key target in there as well. So they're definitely feeling the pinch in terms of being down some tall players as well at the moment. But yeah, a great start to the season for Carlton, and a lot of work to do for Geelong.
That'll definitely be interesting. Just it'd definitely be interesting to see. They're definitely feeling the loss of Chloe Shear
Yes.
at the Cats too. And then I believe Georgie Prasparkas didn't play in this. That also kind of puts a little bit of a kink into the proverbial armor of the Cats. But still, they have the talent to be able to beat Carlton. So an impressive performance by Carlton, playing through what like I said was absolutely atrocious and fun conditions, but as many of my Australians say, footy's a winter sport. You got to play through it. So it just kind of makes me chuckle a bit from somebody from North America. I'm like, you can't play it in winter up here, so it's not a winter sport. But we won't get into that for now, right? So we'll jump to a fun one over at Albleton Oval as the Fremantle Dockers survive a tough and gritty performance from the Port Adelaide Power, getting an 8-point win. 37-29. The Dockers bouncing back and getting a nice win on the road at Alberton Oval, which was fantastic. The South Australian fans are up and about getting to support their teams. Some fantastic performances here. And Anya Tig a little bit down compared to what you would expect for a game that Fremantle win. But again, Dockers find a way to win on the road.
Yeah, I look at it. That's exactly what they did. They were behind at every break in this game, so this was a victory that they really eked out, and I suppose that probably makes it all the better to give them their second victory of the season. Down at quarter time without scoring a goal in the first quarter, down at halftime, down at three-quarter time, but really it was a dominant fourth quarter display that saw them turn this game around. They had I think they won the inside 50 count in the final quarter 16-1, and they kicked 2 goals, 3 behinds, keeping Port Adelaide scoreless. So that really was the difference. But yeah, there was some. Anya Tai probably had a quieter game than usual, mainly down to the defensive work that was done on her. But she came up with, I suppose, a critical goal in that last quarter as well. And as did the other Irish player, Amy Mulholland, absolutely brilliant goal. A banana
Mhm.
kick from the sideline is up for goal of the year, which is fantastic to see the third round in a row, incidentally, that there's an Irish player up for goal of the year. But like a couple of moments like that turned the game around. Incidentally, injuries is prevalent throughout this chat, but Amy Mulholland was an emergency player and only came in as a late change before the game for Aisling McCarthy, who was has knee soreness. So again, we're waiting on the update on that injury. Hope it's not too serious, but she was wearing a leg brace as well. But yeah, I think Fremantle will be happy with that. They dug it out, a dominant final quarter when it mattered, and they got the win.
I have to say this. I have to say this. The Mulholland goal. I mean, as an Irishman, when an Irish woman kicks that goal, you had to warm the cockles of your heart when that one went through because that looked like an absolutely gorgeous snap. And the fact that she kicks it with the oval shaped ball and she shaped it absolutely magnificently. I know in the back of my mind I went, I'm so happy I'm talking with Mike this week
Yeah.
when Mulholland puts that goal away because that had to warm your heart on that one.
Oh no, it's fantastic. Deservedly up for goal of the year for this round. But again, just the camera angles and everything worked in her favor from where they captured that for TV. But just the flight of that ball, it really was, I suppose, a Gaelic football style kick. A
Mhm.
hook kick, bringing it from outside to in, and that's the natural kick of most of these Irish players. So it's brilliant to see one go over like that, and especially as I mentioned for Amy just coming in as an emergency. We saw the celebration after the grabbing the jersey and stuff. We saw what it meant to Amy and all the Dockers. Yeah, but yeah, a phenomenal goal.
That was it was fantastic. Like I said, when I saw that, I was like, Mike's gonna love that one. So, so
Absolutely.
we'll move on to Thomas Farms Oval in Unley in Adelaide as the Crows get a win in the top of the table clash with the upstart Hawks. The Crows get the win, but really, when it comes to it, Mike, for me. This is one quarter really changed this game, and that was the second quarter because that's when the Crows put the proverbial foot on the throat of the Hawthorn Hawks. Because if you take the third quarter away, in all, the other three quarters were relatively even. The Hawks represented themselves well. It's just that one term that they're going to look back and go, darn it, that's the reason, really, why we lost this by the result that we did.
Yeah, definitely. The Hawks can be very happy with how they battled up throughout most of this game. But as you said, it was either even a quarter time or just 1 point in it. But it was that second quarter did all the damage. Danielle Ponter absolutely on fire. A
Mhm.
record 5 goals for her. She got the first three of the match. Ultimately, that was probably the difference between the teams. Hawthorn had been unbeaten up to this, a great start to the season for them. So they brought that momentum with them to Adelaide, and they can be relatively happy with the game throughout. But it was, Crows just a bit more superior on the night. Ponter was brilliant. The midfielders, Ebony Marinoff was amazing as well, as was Emily Bates for the Hawks. Sorry, so some great performances there. That might be her new nickname. Yeah, and look at a big night for the Crows to remain unbeaten again. I suppose the only setback for them would be an injury to Eloise Jones, which has ended her season. So unfortunately, every game we speak of, we're hearing of season-ending injuries here. So that's the only negative on a big night for Adelaide. But yeah, they're looking very strong at the start of the season.
Yeah, definitely for sure. It's very hard to see really good players the going down with season-ending injuries in this way. And the crazy part is we're not even like I said, we're coming into the round where we're starting to see two games. The battle of attrition is going to be very, very, very obvious as this season goes on. Is the depth of these lists purely on the fact that you're starting to see players go down, unfortunately, like flies. So it'll be fun to see again. Adelaide, so good. They're just so talented. They're so talented. They're so deep. They bat in ways many teams don't. But again, I have to give it to you. The Hawks did magnificent for a third year team to go over to Adelaide and to really hold their own, except for one term. That was impressive. So my hats off to the Hawks. I think they're definitely one of those teams we're going to talk about at the as the pointy end of the season goes on for sure. We jump down the Casey Fields hoodoo, the fortress that is Casey Fields might be crumbling for a second consecutive week. The Demons lose at home at Casey Fields as the North Melbourne Roos do it again as they smash the Melbourne Demons 71-21. Another fantastic game for a Roos team that again continues to show why they're a lot of people's pick to win the premiership this year.
Without question, probably the most impressive looking team so far. I know we're only 3 rounds in, but absolutely on fire. Beaten finalists last year, looking unreal this year. Previously up to last season, they couldn't catch a win over Melbourne Demons or any of the top 3 or 4 teams, and now they seem to be beating them week in and week out. So an amazing win, and I suppose the style of the win is what's more impressive. The game was pretty even in the first quarter, level at quarter time. A massive jump by North Melbourne in the second quarter with 4 goals, kind of probably set them up for victory. But just they dominated from then on. The most points Melbourne has ever conceded in an AFLW game. They're not going to like that stat, But North Melbourne, brilliant again through the midfield. Ash Riddell on fire. Kate Shearer up front, 5 goals for her. Again, the Demons might be, suffering from a lack of height again due to more injuries to key position players, but Kate Shearlaw and Talia Randall up front. You're not going to keep the two of those quiet all game. And Kate Shearlaw had a field day with 5 goals for herself. But yeah, it was that second quarter that drove on the team, but a seriously impressive win overall. Melbourne didn't stop battling and they lifted their intensity from then on. But they just never looked like breaking down at Melbourne, who were composed, sticking to their game plan, and very, very, very impressive. I know it's early days, but they're definitely looking like the team to beat at the moment.
If they can stay healthy, that'll be the biggest thing is can they keep Emma Carney healthy? Can they keep Jazzy Garner, Ash Riddell, Jenna Bruton? The core of this team, can they stay healthy? If they do, I'm North Melbourne is gonna be there on grand final day. I have a hard time seeing it. But if the tedious nature of this season and the grind of this nature starts to get to that core, then things could change. But right now, I mean, you look at it, yes, they had the draw against Geelong. It stinks they didn't get the 4 points, but you want to know what? They are still going to be there when the whips are cracking because that was a very impressive performance. Again, is it the Melbourne Demons of a couple years ago that was a premiership favorite? No, because they've lost several links to that proverbial chain
Of
over the
course, yeah.
last couple of seasons. So I think you're almost kind of looking at Melbourne kind of trying to maybe rebuild on the fly. We'll have to see. Again, I don't know, but that you're starting to see players like Paxi Paxman is starting to show that she's slowing down. She's not doing the impact that she had. Kate Hoare got tagged pretty much out of this game to the point where she was very much down on her normal performance. So again, this is a good North Melbourne team. They are definitely showing why a lot of people fancy them as the premiership favorites this particular season. So we jump to Windy Hill in Melbourne and an absolute fun game in this one. The score may not be high, but these two teams got after each other, and there was some spice to this one as the Saints keep the undefeated streak going with an 8 point win over the Dons, 23-15. The Saints looking impressive. Yeah, have they faced the cream of the crop of the competition? No, but 3 wins out of three, not too shabby.
Definitely. And look, that's the way you want to start the season. Yeah, they've tougher tests to come, no doubt about it. But they've got their 3 wins. They're top of the table. They've been impressive. They dug out a win here in a tough physical game as well. You know, as a couple of controversial decisions, there was 250-meter penalties that led to goals for St Kilda. That obviously had a big impact on the game. Lots of physical tussles throughout. There was definitely a bit of an edge to it. You know, Essendon started strongly, and in overall they had more inside 50s than their opponents. But I think this win for St Kilda was built on their defense. Their defensive play was exquisite. You know, Serene Watson, Paige Trudgeon, Bianca Jacobson, between the three of them alone, I think they had 11 rebound inside 50s.
Mhm.
So that kept the Bombers at bay. But yeah, look, you got to be impressed with St Kilda. Momentum is a lot in a short season like this. They're 3 wins. They're top of the table. You got to remember last season they were percentage away from the finals, making number 8, and almost were there. So they're going to be there or thereabouts, or they fancy themselves to be there or thereabouts this season. And it's a fantastic start for them, without question.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And like I said, I don't mind a little niggle in these games. I don't mind a little getting after each other. And they definitely did. It was fun to watch again. Nick Del Santo again. Have they faced the toughest teams? Absolutely not. But again, banking wins early in a season, especially in a season where you're gonna go through a lot of adversity with the fixture and then how it's gonna go. Banking those 4 points in the first 3 games is really good for the Saints. They're looking very, very good when it comes to their chances of making finals if they can keep this up. It'll be fun to watch. And we jump to what I think is probably one of the most entertaining matches of the round as we see our second draw in as many weeks as the Giants and Suns split the 4 points in a 36-36 draw at Manuka Oval in Canberra in a game that absolutely was magnificent. I know some people hate a draw. I love a draw. I think a draw is fantastic. Maybe it's because I watch international football, so I see draws all the time, and I can see how sometimes it can be the most appropriate ending because neither team really deserves the win. They both played good, but they both didn't. One team didn't take the reins, and that's kind of how I see it on this one. Again, the Suns kicking Jamie Stanton slotting a goal to send this thing to a draw as with after the siren was magnificent. These two teams got after each other. Again, a little bit of spice. I don't mind it.
Yeah, a really entertaining game, you know. And as you say, you know, Jamie Stanton with a goal to snatch a draw after the siren, celebrated it as if it was a win because it was in a way, you know, it was first 2 points of the season for Gold Coast. They came from behind here. Sydney will probably be kicking themselves a little bit. They led it all of the changes in this game, but again, injuries caught up with them throughout the game. They literally players falling left, right, and centre. They had a late withdrawal before the game with Izzy Huntington with knee soreness again. But throughout the match, then Cambridge McCormick off with an ankle, Emily Pease
Mhm.
also with an ankle. Then we saw Nicola Barr get up grabbing a hamstring and having to be carried off. So they're like concerning times for the Giants, I suppose, in terms of the growing injury list. And particularly, this game was their first of a run of, I think, 6 games in 29 days. So they've got a phenomenal busy fixture ahead. But flip over to the Sun side of it then. A few key exciting moments there as well with some of the Irish players involved. Clara Fitzpatrick to kick a goal there in the final quarter, her first ever career goal in her 5th season, I think her 24th game. Normally plays as a key defender, snuck up, intercepted a handball and slotted it through to get Gold Coast into a great position there for that dramatic finish. But again, some of the younger players, Charlie Rowbottom, absolutely phenomenal in this game. 41 disposals. In any other season, that's phenomenal. Ali Anderson only broke the disposal record with 43 last week, so that is huge numbers for her. And we know she's been a star all along, but absolutely dominant in this game. So yeah, in a way, I think the Giants will feel that they left this one after them a little bit. The Suns will be happy to have gotten the 2 points and get some points on the board, and hopefully start building on that. But from a spectator point of view, it was definitely an exciting game to watch. And as you say, draws are rare. We've had two now in 2 weeks, but I think it was each team deserved to get something out of this fixture.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like I said, sometimes it's neither team deserves to win. This is one of those neither teams really deserve to lose because both teams absolutely had a crack again. You're gutted for GWS. Like I said, they go down injuries, and maybe if those injuries don't happen, maybe they hold on to this win. But Gold Coast again shows their mettle. They just don't give up. They just don't give up. And again, I love Jamie Stan's celebration. That's 2 points that you weren't
Yeah,
expecting to
agreed.
get. You
Yeah.
gotta you gotta be happy about it. I know it's like I said, anticlimactic. There's no song to sing because you didn't get the win. But you want to know what? Celebrate that. You got points. You stole points. You got points that you probably shouldn't have. So you got to give it to Gold Coast. They absolutely fought their tails off. Absolutely love it. So that is it. That is all 9 games for round three gone now. 3 rounds down, still 7 more to go. And as we said, the big fixtures, the double games start this round. We will see 11 games this round. We'll talk about that a little bit later as we go on. So let's jump to the burning questions. I've talked about it a couple of times. As we enter round four, only 2 teams stand with no losses in the L column. Which team do you think will stay unbeaten the longest?
Well, this is an interesting one because both of the teams have the potential to go unbeaten for another couple of rounds. But here's the good one: they're playing each other in 3 rounds' time in round seven, so or week seven as we call it now. So they may remain unbeaten until that crunch tie. And what a game that would be at the top of the table: Adelaide versus St Kilda. But next up for the Crows, we've got Essendon, which they should win that one, and then they're away to Brisbane Lions. So that'll probably be their first real test of the season in week 6. So that's going to be an interesting one for Adelaide. And that's immediately proceeding before they come up directly against St Kilda. And then for St Kilda, you've got Hawthorn and
Going this
Fremantle
week.
across the next couple of weeks. Again, on the form that they're in, both will probably be interesting contests because Hawthorn and Fremantle are in a good vein of form at the minute as well, but both winnable for the Saints, you would think. So it could go to 3 weeks' time for the Saints versus Adelaide to see who holds on to that unbeaten run, and how exciting would that be?
I think the Crows will be the last I think the Crows will be the last unbeaten potentially because I worry that the Hawks may nip the Saints this week. Personally, that's
Yeah,
just me. I think the Hawks, the Saints have played well. They've played well. But I think the Hawks, when it comes to what they have in the tank and what they can do, I think they're going to give the Saints a bunch of headaches this week, which I think could cost St. Kilda. So I may be giving away my tip here, but I like the Hawks in that matchup. Actually, if I'm being 100% honest, I think you take a lot of positive momentum in the Hawks camp, and I think the Saints, after a very physical matchup, and especially considering this game is this on a Saturday afternoon. It'll be interesting to see how the Saints respond at RSEA Park as the Hawks come in, looking to continue their very well played season so far. I know, like I said, I know they lost the game against the Crows, but I think they did not do themselves a disservice with their performance on that one. So we jump to it. We had the positive. Now, unfortunately, we'll go to the negative as both Geelong and Melbourne are mired back in the ladder, which I don't think many people would have expected. Can either make the finals, or will it be too tough to jump so many teams in a condensed fixture?
Well, this is an interesting one. Like yeah, both of them back in 14 and 15 on the ladder at the minute. Who would have guessed it? Um, Geelong preliminary finalists last year, as we mentioned. It is a condensed season. Just looking back to the ladder last year, even though there's one more game this year, I think 24 points got three teams into the top eight last year. So that's 6 wins. So both Melbourne and Geelong need to start winning and need to start winning fast. If you look ahead across the next couple of weeks for Melbourne Demons, they're away to Fremantle Dockers. Then they've got Essendon and the Giants. So there's probably some winnable games for them there, sure, coming up. Then they're going to hit, I suppose, a patch where they're taking on the Crows in week 7 and St Kilda again in week 8, who may or may not continue with the momentum they have at the minute. Um, but if you flip over to Geelong, then on the other side, they've probably had a tough opening few weeks against Melbourne, North Melbourne, and Carlton. They've got the Suns and the Hawks next, and then there's their condensed fixture in week 6. We'll see them play Fremantle and the Swans within 5 or 6 days of each other. So that could be a defining week for Geelong, how those two games go. And further in their future, they've got the Lions and the Crows still to come. So
Mhm.
it's, you said it there about banking wins for St. Kilda earlier. It's the exact same in reverse. If you get early losses on the board, it is an uphill battle because anything can happen on any given day and any given fixture. There's no doubt that they have the quality to do it. And as you said, even if Melbourne are a team that may be in a bit of a rebuild on the fly, they still have the quality to get to an 8, but both these teams have made life difficult for themselves. So it will be interesting to see how they respond across the next few weeks. Probably winnable games for both of them across the next few weeks, but then both of them nearly have a week coming up where they've got two big fixtures that may define their seasons.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna come down to where do you get your wins?
Yep.
Plain and simply, can you get your 4 points? Because Geelong does have that funky has the funky ability if they do have that 2 point draw, which is going to make things a little more interesting come the latter time, especially if them and the Gold Coast GWS are the all is if those are the only two draws, it's going to make things quite interesting as the season goes on. I worry about Melbourne a little bit. I think that their coffers were their coffers were ripped open a little bit this last year, having several players leave the club, and this is something they haven't had to deal with. The depth of that club has not been tested at all in its entire existence. So we'll have to see. I think the Cats can bounce back. They still have Georgie Prasparkas to come back, and I think the rest of their
Huge
schedule,
in. Yep.
I think the rest of their fixture looks manageable. That I think they can get enough wins to get in. It's the D's I'm worried about right now. And that's the team I'm worried about because they still really haven't faced the teeth of their thing, and their depth is already becoming an issue. So we'll have to see on that one. So, and we will go to you, sir, as the Irish recruiter extraordinaire that you are. I gotta ask this: with the improved and incredible performances by your countrywomen of Ireland, has the improved play of your fellow of the Irish players made an impact on your recruiting? Have you seen more girls coming up to you wanting to join AFLW with the incredible performances of Eileen Gilroy and all of these Irish players?
Without question, Donny. Yeah, of course, it's been a dream start to the season for the Irish players. Firstly, we've 33 Irish players in action, which is a record equaling, out of 36 players signed. So that was the most players ever to sign contracts. We've three players in active, 33 active, across weeks 1, 2, and 3. We've had 27, 25, and 26 Irish players in action. But it's more, the impact that they're having. If you jump straight back to week 1, even, it was an Irish goal fest. We had 21 goals scored by Irish players, which is
Hmm.
phenomenal. The most Irish goals ever scored, the most individual goal scorers in 12 Irish players scored goals. We had 7 multiple Irish goal kickers. So that took a lot of headlines, obviously. But not only that, it was more, I suppose, the impact that either new players or returning players had. So if you take Ailish O'Dowd at GWS, for example, I
Hmm.
got her over to GWS last season, and she's had a phenomenal impact, as I knew she would. She's an amazing athlete, but in her first touch, she got the quickest goal in AFLW history after 15 seconds with her first
Hmm.
disposal, into the history books. That is the story of the Irish players from round 1 without question, but she's backed it up across the last couple of weeks again. You take Vicky Wall, who's come back from a year playing rugby sevens with the Irish sevens program here in the run up to the Olympics, straight back in with no preseason to North Melbourne, scoring 2 goals in her first game. Not as impactful this weekend, but still doing a lot of, bringing a physicality up front to North, that's complementing these key tools that they have up there and definitely impacting on the game. And as you said, the likes of Aileen Gilroy played her 50th game in round 2, won the goal of the year nomination for round 2 or week 2 as well, in brilliant form, as is Anya McDonough, the all-time leading Hawks goalkeeper. The accolades and the stats are endless in terms of what the Irish players are doing. So to come back to your question, is it generating interest in more players wanting to come over or wanting to find out a bit more about it? Absolutely, 100%. That success combined with the fact that we have 2 games of footy on TV every weekend here in Ireland now as well. One every Saturday, one every Sunday, albeit deferred, but still on primetime TV here in Ireland. Um, the spread of players, those 33 Irish players are from across 18 counties here in Ireland. So that's more than half the counties in Ireland have a player represented. So, at this stage, everybody knows or is playing or is a teammate of somebody that's playing AFLW at the moment. So huge interest there. Um, but also, I suppose that impact that the Irish players are continuing to make definitely means that the AFLW clubs are still looking to Ireland as a source for players that are able to come in and make an impact, in some cases off a limited preseason. Even if you take the likes of Kate Kinney at Geelong, we've got the 2 Irish redheads full forward line now for Geelong, Aisling Maloney and Kate Kinney. Kate straight into the team from round 1 as well, and bringing total dynamic play up there. So yeah, across the board, Blind Mackin from Melbourne has been one of the standout players for them on the
Hmm.
wing in their first couple of seasons, and she came back on a very pre-season on their couple of games. She came back on a very sharp pre-season as well. So yeah, they're impacting across the competition, across the teams. Anya Tai, phenomenal as well so far. You could name most of the Irish players as having a major impact.
Yep, 100%. I remember saying in the offseason, I said Vicky Wall joining North Melbourne is almost scary because she was already good the season before. She's had a season off. She's coming in. She's basically a new player. You add her and Libby Birch to a team that made the grand final the previous season. Holy shnikes, North looks dangerously good, especially with what Vicky Wall did in her first season with not a lot of training under her belt, and she goes right in and plays fantastic. I knew she would. Again, I remember if I remember correctly, my round 1 team of the round, I believe I had 4 Irish players out
Yeah,
of 21. So I remember that. I remember laughing at myself a little bit as I filled it out. I was like, Mike's gonna love me to death because I've got an Irish feel to so many on this, but they've been absolutely magnificent. I'm loving seeing it. And the fact that this gives some women in Ireland that chance to play professional sport. I know it's in Australia, and the biggest thing that for me, maybe it's just because I love sport internationally, is that I just don't want to see the Gaelic game take too big a hit because of this. I know it's going to happen because of the fact that the Gaelic game is amateur and AFLW footy is professional. But the Gaelic impact on the game, I think, has been magnificent, um, just as much as the Aboriginal players make on on the men's game. I think it's absolutely great to see that different type of footy being played because the Irish play with a different flair, and I absolutely love it. So, and I'm not just saying that because Mike is on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I truly believe the Irish bring a flair that I absolutely love. I think it's fantastic for the competition as a whole. So we will jump to it where I take over the podcast just the tiniest bit, coach a team of the round. And I'm sorry, Mike. Unfortunately, not a ton of Irish players on this round. It was nothing personal. It was just the way it kind of went. But the one thing I got to say though is that there is at least one Irish player that I'm. If I look at my list, there is at least one Irish player that did make it. So there's I didn't shut you out on this one. So let's jump
No
onto
problem.
it. Fullback Lions sees Chelsea Bedell of the Adelaide Crows and Serene Watson of the St. Kilda Saints. At the halfback line, we see Maddie Guerin of the Carlton Blues. Tamara Smith of the Hawthorn Hawks kicks her first AFLW goal. You get a shout out from Coach Hess. And GWS's Tarney Evans rounds out the halfback line. On the wings sees perennial favorite Sophie Conway of the Brisbane Lions and Maddie Shevlin of the Richmond Tigers. Not many disposals, only 9, but 2 goals kicked. Gotta give you a little bit of credit on that one. In the guts, Mim Strom of the Fremantle Dockers is our ruck, along with Norse Ash Riddell again, continuing her in fuego season the way she's been going. And both Carlton's Abby McKay and Mimi Hill take the other 2 center spots. At the half forward line, Danielle Ponta, you kick 5 goals, you're definitely in the team. Montana Ham of the Sydney Swans, and Taylor Smith of the Brisbane Lions round out the half forward line. The full forward line sees Kate Sheilor of the North Melbourne Roos and Richmond's Katie Brennan round out the starting 16. On the bench, Geelong our defenders Becky Webster of the Geelong Cats. In the midfielding position, we see Emily Bates of the Hawthorn Hawks. In the ruck position, Eilish O'Dowd, there's our Irish player.
There
I
you
had to
go.
get her in. Um, of the GWS Giants, the forward Alice O'Loughlin of the North Melbourne Roos, and my utility, one of my favorite players, Ali O'Drennan of the West Coast Eagles. So a lot of names really quickly. Your thoughts on Team of the Week?
Yeah, love it, Donny. There's not much that you do differently there. Maybe Charlie Rowbottom a bit stiff to not get a run there.
As I tell everybody, I love Charlie to death, but 42 disposals, but no impact on the scoreboard. And I've told everybody, like I said, I'm very clear on my thing of
Yeah,
goals. I wanted to put Charlie as the utility, but Ali Drennan gives 26 and kicks a goal in the game for West
100%.
Coast. So it's hard for me. Like I said, if I'm going to stay by my standard, like I said, it's great that Charlie got 42. That's absolutely magnificent. Put a little scoreboard, Charlie. Come on. I know you can. I know you can. So I know
Yeah, I
it's
know it.
it's nitpicking. I completely get it.
You got to stick to your guns. No, that's a fantastic team of the week, and delighted to see Ailish O'Dowd in there as well. I suppose important to highlight she's playing ruck, which is really a specialised position, and you don't see
Mhm.
too many Irish players jump straight into ruck, and so she has really taken on that challenge, and it is a challenge, and relished it, and is playing really well there. And I suppose her athleticism. Is what's really interesting because she effectively becomes an extra midfielder even though she's playing ruck because of her ability to hit
Mhm.
the ground and run from there. But so delighted to see her on there. But yeah, that's a fantastic team of the week.
Yeah, she caught my eye in that, like, as you said, that record-setting goal to start off her career. I mean, it's hard not to catch your eye on that one. So she looks fantastic. In fact, as a Swans fan, I'm a little interested to see how she goes against if Ali Morfitt is back in, how she goes
Yes.
against Ali this week in the Sydney Derby this particular round. I'm looking forward to that because I think that's going to be fun to see how she handles Ali because if Ali can get going, she can be one of the most dangerous rucks in the entire competition despite her size. She's athletic as all get out for her size. So it'll be fun to watch that particular matchup. Speaking of matchups, we'll jump to it. As we said, the condensed fixture sees 11 games as 4 teams, Collingwood, West Coast, Brisbane, and the Western Bulldogs will play 2 games this week. So we will start off Tuesday night footy. As a footy lover yourself, Mike, I bet you're loving this because there's footy every single day after today. I cannot wait. First game, she's Collingwood host the West Coast Eagles at Icon Park here in Melbourne. Who do you like in this one?
Well, this is an interesting one, and Tuesday footy, I'm not so sure, Danny, because a bit like yourself, I'm trying to get loads of content out after the weekend, and when there's a game on Tuesday, it's putting the pressure on yourself and myself for sure. But yeah, look at this is an interesting one because Collingwood, we mentioned earlier, have been ravaged by injuries. They're topping up players. They've now confirmed this morning that Britt Benici is also out for this game, and she's
Oh,
probably one of
jeez.
their remaining key players. So you have the West Coast Eagles who have stayed in Melbourne after their win. So the Eagles could get a W here, and how good would that be to see it at Icon Park? So it's a tough period of time for Collingwood, and they're one of the teams that has that second game later this week as well. So huge week for them. But yeah, the Eagles could get a W here, and how good would that be?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the Eagles start off the season under Daisy as well as they have. It'll be fantastic. I'm with you. I like the Eagles in this one. Collingwood, the Britt Benici out makes it even
Yes,
more obvious. I know they have Bree Davy. That's going to be fun. But again, Ali Drennan and the West Coast Eagles have played really good football. The fact that they stayed in Melbourne, I think, will really help instead of having to travel two-person back. I like that decision by the West Coast Eagles brass and probably because of Daisy. So I'm with you on this one. I like the West Coast Eagles. I'm worried about this next one on Wednesday night because this could
yeah.
get ugly and could get ugly. I mean, and I'm just looking at the betting odds and the betting odds. This is the most I've ever seen. $26 for the Western Bulldogs. Oh my gosh. This could be one of those. Could we see 150 points put up by Brisbane again? I hate saying that, but no Ellie Blackburn, a bunch of youngsters against a Brisbane team that can put up points on the best sides, let alone the sides at the bottom. Brisbane big.
Brisbane big, Brisbane without question, Donny. But it's how big it's going to be, and yeah, you do dread this one a little bit, even more so now for the Bulldogs with Ellie Blackburn out because, as I said, she was really carrying that young team on her shoulders. So the task has got even harder for every game, but not to mind coming up against the Lions team who are just really finding momentum and form and just run through the middle at the minute. So they are going to run over the Bulldogs. It's just a case of how much and what impact that might have on this young Bulldogs team for the rest of the season.
That'll definitely be interesting. An interesting, a fun one at Icon Park on Thursday night. Sees the Richmond Tigers host the Carlton Blues at Icon Stadium. Okay, that's an interesting one there that the Richmond Tigers are hosting
Yeah,
Carlton at Carlton's place. Sorry, as I'm reading the website, I'm going. My brain is going. Wait, red flag, red flag, red
yeah,
flag.
yeah. Trying to
So
figure it out.
Richmond effectively hosting Carlton. Who do you like in this one?
Well, this is an interesting one. This is probably one of the more even games of the round, in my opinion. And I've got this one potentially to go either way. So I think it's going to be a close one. Both teams coming off a great win at the weekend, so they have that positive momentum in their favor. Um, the home venue doesn't come into it. It's as much a home game for Carlton as it is for Richmond. So yeah, I have this down as a 50-50. This could go anyway, and it's probably it's a big 4 points for whoever gets it in terms of
Mhm.
their overall season.
Yep, I'll tip Richmond in this. I'll tip Richmond in this one. I liked the way they looked against the Swans. I'm interested to see how Carlton back up after an atrocious game in those weather conditions. The fun part will be is the travel for Richmond could get interesting, especially coming off a short week with the travel from Coffs Harbour back to Melbourne. So it'll be fun on that one. I like Richmond. I think Katie Brennan's got some confidence in her. A lot of the midfield players for Richmond have been playing really well. That'll be a fun one. I mean, Abby McKay, Mimi Hill versus Mon Conti,
Yes.
Grace Egan, and Ellie McKenzie. That midfield battle is going to be delicious for sure. That's going to be fun on Thursday night. What an incredible game there. A fun one at Mission Whitten Oval in Melbourne as the North Melbourne Roos host the Port Adelaide Power. North big in this one. I love Port. I think they've got a great young list. They're going to grow. They're going to be, but this is a North Melbourne team that's absolutely in fuego, and they're licking their chops facing a young team coming to town.
Yeah, 100%, especially coming off the fixtures that North have had. They're going to see this one as a victory to be taken, and you can't see it going any other way, really, in terms of the form that they're in at the minute. And as you say, Port Adelaide have been impressing, a young team heading in the right direction, but North are going to take out the win here, and it's more about, I think, Port Adelaide putting in a performance and try to limit the damage, but definitely not looking past the Kangaroos on this one.
Yeah, definitely for sure. An interesting one. People's First Stadium up in the Gold Coast as the Suns host the Cats. Like I said, I'm hoping Manny Prosparkis that Georgie Prosparkis got my wrong Prosparkis sister on that one. Apologies for that one. As hopefully Georgie is back for this one to see a fun one between the Suns and the Cats in this one. It's the big body midfield of Charlie Rowbottom versus the quick ball moving midfield of Amy McDonald and Georgie Prosparkis. Cross my fingers that they're in. Interesting one here. Who do you like? Gold Coast, Geelong.
Well, it is an interesting one because it's one both teams need to win, but I think Geelong need to win it more. So I'm just going to favour the Cats slightly on this one, and especially just they're going to need a bounce back off the performance they had last weekend. It looked like, even though the conditions were appalling, it looked like both teams were playing with a different football. Geelong could not literally stick a ball to their hands. So I think they need a response, and it potentially comes here. But also, then, the Suns have got their first points on the board off that draw. They're at home, and the crowd will be behind them. But I think not only do the Cats need to win this one. We touched on it earlier. They got to get their season back on track. So I fancy them slightly on this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Saturday afternoon. What are the weather conditions like that up in Queensland? It'll be fun on that one. I'm gonna tip Geelong in this one. I think the Cats just a little too much. Jackie Perry, Aisling Maloney, I think may have field days against a defense that is a little bit undersized. I like the Cats in this one. Claudia Kanjaka will be able to shut down either Tara Bohannon or Jack DePie. Can they keep the other off the scoreboard? If they can do that, I think the Cats just a little bit too good overall. A fun one. I cannot wait for this one. I'm hoping to be able to watch this one because this is going to be a cracking game. St. Kilda, RSEA Park, hosting the Hawks. Hawks coming off a valiant, though loss to the Crows. Saints coming off that physical matchup with the Dons. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, look at it. We touched on it earlier. This is a pretty even one for me as well. But I think even though the Saints have the three wins, they haven't had the huge test yet. Hawks had a great start to the season as well with their two wins and their loss to Adelaide. There was no shame in that. It was a brilliant performance overall. They matched one of the best teams in the comp for 3 quarters away from home. So I think the Hawks could edge this one. Everything is pointing in a positive direction for them at the minute. Some of their key players are on fire. Emily Bates, Gilroy's having a storm. Looking at it from the Irish point of view, Anya McDonough's hitting the scoreboard every weekend. So I think Hawthorn in a close one.
I am with you on that one. I think St. Kilda keep it close because they've got the talent, they've got the skill, but I think the Hawks' ability and their run with the footy, I think is going to give St. Kilda headaches. Hawks in this one, but I think it's close. I think we have another one that comes down to the final 2 minutes at RSEA Park. That'll be a fun one. We fly out to the west, and WA is Fremantle host the Melbourne Demons. The Demons licking their wounds off a pantsing by North Melbourne. Fremantle with some positivity after the win over Port. I'm gonna tip the upset in this one for most people. I'm tipping the Dockers. I think
Yeah,
the Dockers get the win on the road. I know the betting favorite is Fremantle at home, but I think if you ask most people, if you look at Melbourne, you look at Fremantle, most people are going to tip Melbourne. They think Melbourne will get the bounce back. I like the Dockers in this one. It's out west. I think Anya Tig doesn't have to worry about a big defender that's going to shut her down. I think it's only going to open up the rest of her teammates. Hopefully, Aisling McCarthy is healthy and is able to play. Crossing my fingers that some good news comes back and maybe it was just a little bit of knee soreness and she'll be back. I like the Dockers in this one. I know it'll be a close one, but I like the Dockers.
yeah, I tend to agree with you on this one, Donny. This could be a season defining game for Melbourne very early on because, as you say, normally seasons past, if Melbourne take a beating like they did this weekend, you do see a strong bounce back and a strong retaliation from that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen against Fremantle and especially up in Perth. Um, Anya had a quiet game last round. She's liable to cut loose again in the absence of those Melbourne thaws that we mentioned earlier on. So it's a game that Melbourne need to win, but it's one that they possibly won't win. And I think if Fremantle get the win here, that puts their season definitely on an upwards trajectory as well.
Yep, I'm one of those. This could be the make or break a game for Melbourne. They gotta win this to
Yeah,
keep their finals chances a little bit better. Fremantle, this is your chance to solidify yourselves in the top eight, and I think Fremantle get it done. That'll be a fun one. There, we jump over to a interesting one in Adelaide Oval as the Dons come flying over from Melbourne as the Crows host the Essendon Bombers in this one. Who do you like in this one?
I think I'm just going to go with Adelaide here again. They're going to keep that unbeaten run, stretch it out to 4 games. Seriously impressive. You know, all their key players are absolutely flying it. They have that unbeaten start. Essendon have had a few tough physical games across the last couple of weeks. It's going to be tough against Adelaide, but I think the Crows are going to keep that unbeaten run this week.
And Hatchard, Ebony Marinoff, it's hard to tip against them. I used to say the same thing with Aaron Phillips. I said when Aaron Phillips is on a team, it's hard to tip against them because they find ways to help their team win. Ebony Marinoff and Hatchard, that's enough for me to say why the Crows should win this one. And Louise Jones is going to be a loss,
Of course.
but I
Yeah.
think with the depth and ability of this Crows list, I think they'll be okay. Crows in this one. Dons will be in this, but unfortunately, the loss of Bonnie Too Good early in the season, I think, really has hurt the Dons when it comes to going forward. So just too much Crows firepower for me. So the first of the doubles, which is really funny because they sandwich the two teams that haven't played around as Collingwood host the Western Bulldogs at Victoria Park in Melbourne as the Pies and Dogs have their second game of the round. Who do you like in this one?
Well, you know, it depends on how Collingwood's week goes. You know, they have that game early on Tuesday against the Eagles. They're stretched on numbers. You know, on form. Normally, you think Collingwood are going to win this one against the Bulldogs, but depending on how the next few days go and if Benici is back from injury, um, Bulldogs, this might be as close as they get in a contest in this early stage of the season. If they had Eddie Blackburn, you definitely fancy them a bit more, but that's a huge out, of course. But it depends on how Tuesday goes for Collingwood, how they stretch across the end of the week, a 5-day turnaround. It might be a chance for these young Bulldogs to fire a shot, but on paper, Collingwood should get the win.
Yep, I'm one of those that and the doggies unfortunately could take quite the pounding against the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah,
And the fact that it's up in Queensland, you're going to have to travel. That doesn't make it any better. Where the Collingwood is at home, they don't have to leave their beds. I like the Pies in this one. Again, Ellie Blackburn was there. I'd be with you, but they've got Bree Davy again. No Britt
yeah.
Benici hurts, but I think the Pies have enough in the coffers. They'll be fine. I think the Pies will win this one. Up to Henson Park in Sydney, which hopefully shall be chock a block of people as the two New South Wales teams lock horns. Sydney Derby, Sydney Swans, GWS. I will take my red hat off, put my penalizing black hat back on, but I will still say I think the Swans win this one. I think despite some of the injuries, despite some of that, I just think there's a little bit more talent on the Swans list right now. And if Nicola Barr is out, some of the injuries that they have, again, I'm expecting Ali Morfitt to play. I think this could give Alicia O'Dowd quite the fun matchup there. I think Ali Morfitt has a field day. Crossing my fingers she does because right now this season she has been less than impressive. She's been okay, but not great. Sydney in this one, but again, GWS. I mean, you got Starley Goldsworthy and Elise Parker. Anything can happen.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, this is a cracking fixture, atmosphere-wise, and everything last year at the SCG. So, a huge game up in Henson Park. The crowd will be behind this one. I'm loving the matchup of Ailish O'Dowd against Ollie Murphy if she plays. That'll be a huge test for Ailish to see how she goes against one of the stronger rucks in the competition. The big impact, you know, I think Giants are closer than they would have been before, but the big impact is how those 3 or 4 injuries that we talked about earlier from week 3, how they pan out. If they're players that are out for any sort of time, out for a game, even, it's a huge impact on the Giants. So probably it's one that Swans slightly have the edge on for definite.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one though. I think GWS will be in this. I don't think this is one of those
100%. No.
that the injuries are going to flip it to where the Swans win this going away. I highly doubt that. I think this both teams are kind of the same thing. They've got injuries in places that are going to hurt. It's not going to be the greatest game of football, but it's going to be more about what talent shows up and who makes the big impact. It's the Mon Contis, it's the Sophia Hurleys versus the Elise Parkers and the Zarly Goldsworthys. How do those matchups go? And the biggest thing will be is that how does GWS attack the defense and how does GWS attack the Swans defense will be fun to see in the Sydney Derby. And last but not least, out in the West Coast, Mineral Resources Park, Daisy and the Eagles host the red hot Brisbane Lions, most likely coming off a win over the Western Bulldogs. I'm not trying to assume, but I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Eagles, Lions, who do you like?
Yeah, like the Lions on this one. Obviously, they're going to be probably coming off a big win potentially, as you say. The Eagles are going to be coming back from an extended time in Melbourne. They may or may not have picked up a win earlier in the week. That's going to be an interesting one. But either way, I think it's a big, big test for Daisy Pearce and the young Eagles. But Brisbane Lions for in this one for definite.
Yep, definitely. I like the Lions in this one. The Eagles will be competitive for 2 quarters. I think the second half, the talent and overall firepower of the Brisbane Lions will just be a little bit too much for the Eagles in this one. But again, there's going to be a fight. They're at home, so Brisbane's going to have to fly out to to Perth. So, well, interesting off short rest. Will that bring down? Will that fatigue of the game earlier in the year even the game out a little bit to where maybe Brisbane doesn't have as much oomph in that second game? We'll have to see. But again, I like the Lions in this one. Just a little too much firepower on that one. So it's weird to say that is 11 games
Yeah,
picked
I know.
for this particular round.
Yeah.
Again, this is gonna be absolutely insane. So I cannot wait. It's footy almost every day. Again, this is a footy lover's absolute dream because not only do we get women's footy almost the entire week, but then we have the men's preliminary finals on the weekend as well. So it is going to be an insane week of footy for myself. As to let everybody know on the podcast, I will try, very much try to get the next episode covering round four out on hopefully on Tuesday morning in Australia, Monday evening for the US, and very late evening for you and in Ireland, Mike. So it may be late just because of the fact I'm dealing with co-hosts that sometimes aren't always available, but I'm hoping to be able to have my round reviews for the women out before the round starts. I'm gonna try. So for those of you that are listening, I will try as hard as I can to get them out as much as early before the round as possible. It won't be easy. Again, dealing with people's schedules sometimes, especially when you have co-hosts in Australia, it's always fun. So this has been fantastic. Again, Mike, so great to talk with you. It's always fantastic hearing another non-Aussie who absolutely adores the game of footy.
Absolute pleasure, Donny. Great chatting to you again. Loved it all. And yeah, best of luck across the next couple of weeks. That's quite a schedule incoming, but no doubt you'll fire the stuff out and looking forward to keeping track of it. Thanks again for your time. A pleasure to chat.
Always fun. It's a labor of love, and I absolutely adore it. It's fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.